Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to FPRA Tampa Bay's webinar with SparkSue. It's called Soar into Social Advertising Greatness, and we are so excited that you all joined us today. My name is Adrienne Morgan. We'll go through introductions in just a moment, but this is a part of the partnership between SparkSue and FPRA, and we are an integrated digital agency in Tampa. And the partnership is really focused on educating from a digital perspective on trends in digital marketing and so forth for communication professionals. So I'll jump into the webinar. If you have any questions, please go ahead and insert those in the questions tab of the webinar, and we can go ahead and get those answered for you. So to kick things off, this is who you'll be hanging out with today. So my name is Adrienne Morgan. I am the Vice President of Strategic Growth here at SparkSue. And among many things, I lead the growth team here at SparkSue. I also handle a lot of the strategy side of our client projects. I have done quite a bit of copywriting and social media work in my day as well. And I'm joined by my colleague, Joey Baird, who I will let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Adrienne. My name's Joey Baird. As Adrienne mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Digital Marketing at SparkSue. So that means I lead our digital team. And when I say lead our digital team, that means my team is responsible for all the execution and day-to-day management of digital marketing campaigns on behalf of our clients, inclusive of things like social media. So we run, lots and lots of advertising campaigns. So we're excited to speak to this. I've got quite a number of certifications with Google, with Facebook, with Salesforce, and with marketing automation tools. So any questions there, feel free to go ahead and put them through the question box.
Yes, and we also have Alicia Terry here as well. She is on our team, and while Joey and I handle a lot of the strategy and the big picture ideas when it comes to SparkSue, Alicia is our creative backbone who does a lot of the execution work, and she has worked with some social campaigns like the Philadelphia 76ers, Weight Watchers, among some of our other clients. And like Joey said, please go ahead and submit questions should you have any. We'd love to make this interactive and answer any questions that you have. But I'll go ahead and get us started. So today's presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about SparkSue, who we are, and kind of a little bit more about our agency. And then I'll turn it over to Joey, and Joey's going to talk all about social advertising. Why, do we talk about social media from a paid perspective versus an organic, as well as how to get started when planning some of these social advertising campaigns. And then we'll end with answering any questions that you have. So to start, all brands have a mission statement. So at SparkSue, we say our mission is to accelerate growth. So we think it's so important to really combine creative, technical, and analytical expertise when it comes to campaigns, especially social media campaigns, in order to make impact. And I'm sure one of the first questions that you have is, what in the world is a SparkSue? So SparkSue is the genesis of two words, spark being to catalyze and energize, and zoo is a diverse group of beings. We actually each, we take the zoo mentality to heart, and we each actually have our own spirit animals. Mine's a hippo because it is always hungry and very aggressive, and Joey's is a kangaroo, for obvious reasons, Joey Kangaroo. And then as far as our company goes, we have over 30 employees. And when it comes to the digital side of things, one thing that Joey does a great job of is really forcing his team to be cutting edge, to make sure that we have the latest certifications, so that we're really strong from a technical side, and we are a Google certified partner agency as well. As far as our work goes, we believe in doing great work and people talk, so about 3 out of 4 of our projects actually come from word of mouth referrals. As far as our values, so just to run through these really fast, just so you kind of know our mentality when we talk about social campaigns, we really do believe in winning. So we have a be first mentality when it comes to our values. We believe when our clients win, we win. Going all the way down to be badass, we believe that you have to have personality in everything that you do. For those of you who joined the, what was it? It was the event that we hosted for FPRA Tampa Bay, I believe in Q1 of this year. We gave everyone drink badass koozies. So it is something that we take to heart from a culture perspective, but we also live and breathe our values. We've been able to maintain about 50% annual growth since inception. And as far as our capabilities, while we are strong on the social media side, here's just a full list of everything that we do, from strategy to integrated campaigns and so forth. And with that, I am actually going to turn it over to Joey, and he is going to start the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit those.
Thanks, Adrian. I really appreciate it. We wanted to start out just talking a little bit about social media in this day and age by the numbers, meaning, what's the scope and scale of social, specifically advertising, and what are some of the reasons why you would want to use it, whether it's large scale or small scale. So first pillar here really is that it works. There's Nielsen found that ad recall on Instagram exceeded the norms for online advertising by almost 3 times in over 475 global campaigns. What that means is that there's serious and significant awareness with social, and it also really helps with people remembering your brand, interacting with your brand. The right, we have 8x and 9x as well. So this is basically saying on Facebook, desktop ads have 8x higher click-through rates, and mobile have 9 times higher click-through rates than normal web advertising. So that really speaks to the engagement piece of social, right? It's engaging. People are more trusting of it. They have a higher propensity to click through. And from a marketing and public relations standpoint, we want people to click through in order to understand our message. And then, 26.3% here is really about the increase in spending predicted for 2017. These numbers continue to grow, every year as social becomes more and more important. These networks, meaning, the larger networks like Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, are making it very easy for people to invest dollars in. They're making the advertising more relevant, and the tracking and targeting is becoming something that is really, really, it's getting really granular, and it's allowing people to really show full-scale marketing and really attribute their ROI. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. And lastly, it's really easy to get started. If you haven't actually done any online advertising with Facebook and Instagram, the platforms are built for self-service. So as long as you have, for example, in Facebook's situation, if you were able to create a business manager account and you have a credit card, you can log in and work through it. So top line, it's easy to get started. To really, really have impact, it's helpful to work with a partner that knows how to use the various features and functionality. So let's see here. All right. So I wanted to show a little bit how to get started, and this is kind of an overview of full-scale tactics and strategies that we typically use, and we work with clients across their marketing campaigns. And this is just important to show that hopefully you're not relying on just one channel or one strategy with your marketing pieces. We call ourselves an integrated digital marketing agency because we really focus on integrating several channels at once, and that's how we found that you're going to be able to achieve the most positive ROI, the most positive engagement, recall, etc. So social media is really just one of those pieces. You'll see things like here, search ads, so those are like display ads across the web, or even ads that show up in search engine results pages after you type something in there. It's really important that you have a website, or your clients have websites, and hopefully they're using SEO, search engine optimization, to make sure they're found. Print pieces and out of home, like outdoor media, are still important for larger brands in today's day and age. In-store, shopper marketing type pieces, and then just the brand experience are really important. But ultimately, you should be using a combination of some of these, and then hopefully social can help impact some of the other areas as well. So that's kind of the importance of social, right? So that's why social matters. The bulk of the presentation today is going to talk a little bit specifically on how to get started, and we wanted to start on a little bit higher level, a more theoretical approach. And the way that this works is we've kind of broken this down into 4 main pillars, or 4 main sections. So first thing you want to do is outline your goals and understand what you're trying to achieve, and then you can move into planning your campaign. So channel selection is really all about making sure that you're on the right tool. There's lots of different things you need to consider about which tools are more important, and it's really helpful that you pick the correct channels in the first place. Audience targeting is the second piece. So this is really all about what are the best targeting features and characteristics that you can use to make sure that you are reaching your target audience, and also, what kind of layering can you do, and also what things can you exclude, right? Because you don't want to always reach everybody. Thirdly, you want to make sure that you have you've put some of the technical pieces together, so you can actually implement, so you can actually measure what you're doing. A lot of times, people will run campaigns where they don't actually have some of the technical pieces in place to track their results. They may have top-line information, things like clicks or impressions, but they're not unsure of how that really has affected any movement on their website or with their sales or things like that. And then lastly is learning and optimization. So this is really all about, what did you learn and how can you get better as you move forward. So those are our 4 broad pillars, and over the next few slides, 10 or so slides, I'll kind of dive into each one, and looking forward to digging in. And if you have any questions, just let us know. Sorry. First piece is channel selection, right? So it's really important that you know your channels. The things that you want to consider when you're thinking about your channels is, where is your audience? If you're kind of unsure about where you should be advertising, there are things to look at. Demographics are important. So again, those are the characteristics of the types of people that are on certain channels. Firmographics are the same thing, but more related to companies. So if you're thinking about reaching companies, what types of companies and what types of employees are on certain networks? Competitors, right? It's great to look at competitors to understand what channels they're on. We always recommend starting any project with a competitive analysis to see what's out there, to see how you can differentiate yourself, see what practices you can lift and leverage from them, and then also just make sure that you're not too far off. What's their mindset? This is all about understanding what are people doing while they're on that network. What frame of mind are they in, and why are they using that site? You want to make sure that you're not trying to do something on a social media channel that is against what they would normally be doing, right? So, for example, Twitter. Twitter is small. It's quick. It's quick sound bites. You don't want to necessarily write super long form posts because they're there to kind of scan and to read. Instagram, it's a really visual channel. So is Pinterest. Messages that have significant text aren't going to work there. They're there to peruse images. Outcome is important too. I'll talk a little bit about outcome with targeting and measurement, but ultimately all of your campaigns should have a goal, and those goals can normally those goals will include either conversion, so that's actually like getting someone to submit a form or make a purchase, or engagement. Engagement is really all about getting people interested in the message, having them read maybe your posts or your information or your press releases, or just getting some awareness out there. And then if one thing that's important about the outcomes are, you're not always sure, if you're not always sure which channel is going to provide the best outcomes, it's important to just maybe you start out with a small test in a few, and then you can understand your results, and then you can reinvest accordingly. And then the last piece is how should you communicate, right? You need to understand the message and the tone of the networks. Like I mentioned with Twitter, right? You have to understand the short sound bites, hashtags, etc. for those pieces. Some other key takeaways when it comes to knowing your channels are really all about, the ones that best fit your goals. And, you shouldn't be on every network and every channel. And some people, when they first start, they think they have to be on all the channels, but we would actually advise against that because you need to understand that certain channels you'll have different results, and certain channels are going to be better at conversion than they are engagement, and vice versa. Got some pro tips here. You should typically be on Facebook with any kind of social advertising, unless there's really, really professional slant to it. Then I would say look more towards LinkedIn. But 72% of internet users are on Facebook, and 70% of them are using the site daily. It's a really heavily traffic network. A few billion people on it. So really massive reach there. Instagram and Pinterest. It's really kind of it skews younger, a little bit more female as well, and I always recommend anyone that has really interesting products or visuals or some sort of service that lends itself really well to the visual world, definitely look into Instagram and Pinterest. LinkedIn, again, as I mentioned, it's a really educated audience. It's the only major social network with more users in the 30 to 49-year-old range than the 18 to 29-year-old range, so it skews a little bit older as well. If you're really trying to generate awareness in the B2B segment, LinkedIn is a great place to work because you're going to be able to get in front of you're going to get in front of the exact types of people that you want based on their targeting. They have a really specific targeting, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So again, kind of targeting is where it gets really fun. Having some notes that people can't hear me, just let me know if I'm having some issues. Cool, sorry, I'm cutting in and out. Targeting is where it gets really fun. And it also is kind of, sometimes it's difficult because people get paralyzed by all the analysis they can do. But I have listed here 6 of the main types of targeting, and most of the channels are going to allow you to do all of these targeting features, and some won't be able to get you to do all of them, but that's just going to be dependent on which network you're working on, and we wanted to make this a little bit higher level conversation. So demographics are basically characteristics of people, so things like age, gender, etc. That's a way that old school marketing and public relations used to be able to work well. You would create those personas of people, those broad personas, and then you would basically try to find areas where those demographics will be found. Well, with the advent of all of the tracking capabilities on digital and specifically in social, there's more than just demographics now. Interests are a capability on most of the networks where you can find people that like certain things. So we have a couple, images here, but typically if you're working for a B2C company, you want to make sure that you're reaching people that are going to be using those types of products or are interested in those types of services. So interest marketing is really great. Behavior is something that we love to use, and it's really, really in-depth. It's also a little scary if you think about it. This information is mined by the social networks. So they're able to build algorithms based on your behaviors to build profiles about you. You can actually do things online that will notify the networks of your current behaviors, and then also there's third-party data that the networks actually supplement to collect information. But behaviors are things that people are doing. So these networks can tell if you've maybe recently moved, or you recently returned from vacation, or you're an active credit card user, or you've all heard the stories about the networks where people maybe they'll find out that their spouse is pregnant based on some of the advertising that they're getting on the same computer. So there's things like that are really important when it comes to behavior. So that's a great piece for targeting. Location is great when you're doing geographic specific campaigns. And the last 2 are great introductions that some of the networks have made in the past few years. I'll start with the custom audiences, but custom audiences mean you can actually guarantee impressions to certain people if you are able to get their contact information, right? So if you have a list of, specifically in public relations, right, if you have a list of reporters or journalists or other PR folks you would like to get a message out to, you could actually upload their email information into the networks, and if that same email is tied to their account, you can guarantee impressions to that group. So that's a great way to build a custom audience, and it's really specific. You can also do things with custom audiences like what we would normally call remarketing or retargeting in the online display world. So you can actually build a list, build an audience off of visitors of your website or visitors of certain pages on your website, and you develop custom audiences there to do some retargeting. So if they came to your website, then in the future, they can see ads on social that are related to your website or even certain pages and products. And then lookalikes are really great because if you build, it's a great way to expand your network to get to people that you don't know yet. You can actually use data that you gather in custom audiences, so those lists of contacts or any other types of audiences you build based on digital footprint analysis. And then you can expand that to lookalike. So you can say, I want a similar group, but someone that has never interacted with me. So it's a great way to really get out and widen that message. I would really recommend, if you're getting started, before you really get too far along, to log in to the programs and see what's available for your specific, business or product or service, or the type of message you're trying to spread. You can really just build a test campaign, and then you can start to work together with audiences. Some of these things, like custom audiences, like Facebook really recommends trying to get to at least 1,000 people in that piece in order to really get a large enough reach. I got a couple pro tips here that are really great. Again, understand what your goals are when you're determining your targeting approaches. You want to make sure that you have a compelling message and that your goal aligns with the targeting options that you're using. You can also work towards balancing specificity. So you can use a couple of these or all of them together to drill down into really, really targeted pieces. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have a large enough audience to get the reach that you want or the engagement that you want. So that's what I call the trade-off of specificity. Or sometimes people call it, getting too far in the weeds or going down the rabbit hole, right? All of those kinds of analogies mean you want to create a specific audience, but you don't want to get too specific because you don't want to limit yourself too much. Some of the tools will actually tell you if you've gotten too drilled down, too detailed. They'll tell you that you actually can't exhaust the budget that you set up. Or you may just notice after you run a campaign for, give it some time, that you're just not getting the reach that you want based on the impressions and the click-throughs. And that's when you would want to maybe take a couple steps back and back it up a little bit. The third piece I'll talk about is really the technical implementation for measurement here. So what we have outlined is really just a basic example of a prospect journey. And this is an actual kind of like a B2C or a B2B example. The process is that people will see ads on their networks. They'll click on that ad. Generally, they'll get taken to a landing page on your website. Sometimes there actually are a lot of new ads that have came out in the past 6 months to a year that allow people to actually take action directly in the ads. So for example, rather than going to a landing page to submit a form, you can actually do it now in Facebook and LinkedIn. So you can actually build a form within the tool, and you can actually have those leads emailed to you, or you can download CSV files. There's also lots of really interesting ad units out there. So for purposes of simplicity, we kind of just wanted to show, normally the process is you would click on the ad and you would exit the social network and you would go to a landing page or a page on the website. On that page, you would be instructed to do something. So most of the time it's people for B2B are submitting forms to generate leads, or for B2C, it's more of an e-commerce play where you're actually buying something. And then in a lot of public relations cases, if you're just really trying to generate information out there, you can drive people to press releases or informational posts, or if you're asking for maybe things like backlinks. After the person completes the third step there and they submit that form or they buy, typically they would be then directed to a thank you page. And the thank you page is just the confirmation of their purchase or confirmation of their submission. And you want to make sure that when you're working with the networks that you implement the correct conversion pixels on those thank you pages. So what that means is when you create a campaign, for example, let's say in Facebook, you have an actual piece of code. It's a simple JavaScript code that's only maybe 15 lines, and you need to put that on the actual thank you page in the code. And there's tools out there that allow you to do this without really significant IT involvement. You just maybe need a little bit of help from your IT to put something on there, and then, for example, Google Tag Manager, you could have them put one container on there, and now as a public relations member, you can put as many tags as you want on that page. So if you're kind of rolling out to multiple pages or multiple networks. But this conversion pixel is really important. And then in some cases, you would want to have actually your whole website tagged with those conversion pixels, because you're able to actually understand what people are doing and create multiple conversions. So you may have, if you have a multi-step shopping cart, you want to know how many people have actually put something in the shopping cart and if they purchased, or if you want people to visit certain pages. So we would always recommend, as a pro tip, before any campaign goes live, you want to visually map out, what the user journey is going to be, and that'll allow you to understand what assets you need for ads, what assets you need for landing pages, and then also ensure that conversion tracking is in place across the whole, click stream. And then, it's always important when it comes to measurement to, based on conversion or engagement goals, establish tangible numeric metrics to strive for. This is important because it's going to allow you to understand if your campaign is a success or a failure. And then oftentimes we always see, clients will come to us and they'll say, well, we tried some Facebook, we tried some Instagram, maybe some LinkedIn stuff in the past, but we just haven't been able to get the results we want, so we ended up turning it off. And we go in and look, and it's maybe small budgets, and maybe they only ran the campaign for a week. Well, you need to make sure that you give the campaigns and the networks enough time to actually auto-optimize. And oftentimes, when you create a campaign, you're going to select what the actual goal is going to be. So if it's based on conversions, the campaign, once it starts to see that conversions have taken place, will start to auto-optimize, and will actually start to show ads to people or show ads at times that are more likely to convert. Same thing with engagement, right? It's going to be able to use the technology behind the tools, and based on what the objective is, will actually serve up ads to people that are more likely to be engaged. Another piece when it comes to measurement, as I mentioned before, you want to understand what your goals are when you first start. I've outlined two types of success here, so conversion success and then engagement success. I know everyone's always a little afraid when they see math and they see formulas, but we simplified this one down pretty easy. Realistically, if you're talking about conversion, you want to make sure that you strive to reach return on marketing investment, so ROMI, ROMI. And this is kind of simple. It's really just, you want to make sure that you make more money than you spend. So we have the formula here, and for example, if we spent $50 on a campaign and we made $100, so that's going to be, you'll have revenue of 100 minus cost of 50 will give you 50, and then you divide it by the cost again, which is 50, and that's going to be 1 when you do the fraction there, and you multiply that by 100 to get to a percentage, and that gets you to that's 100% return on marketing investment. Sometimes people will skip the times 100 and it'll just get like a single value. So 1 would be 100%. So anywhere between 1 to 5 are great metrics, and anything between 5 and above is just amazing, great return on marketing investment. But this is one way that you can actually measure your impact. And then from a second piece, if your goals are really around engagement, the goals, the metrics will be dictated by what are you trying to get them to be engaged with. Is it just the ad? Then it's just impressions, so people will actually see it. Things like clicks, you want interaction. Click-through rate, so how many people clicked versus how many people saw the ad. And then there may be even some engagement pieces that are post-click, right? So after they click the ad and they get to your website, if you're utilizing an analytics tool, you can actually track how long those people have stayed on your website. And then that way you can later talk about maybe your TV campaign you only saw a lift of maybe a few percentage points, but your social campaign drove this much traffic to the website and spent this much time on it. So it's a really great way to really track your success when it comes to engagement, is by picking the correct metric. And then the last piece is about learning and optimizations, right? It's awesome that you are actually going to dip your toe in the water and do some social advertising, but you want to make sure that you walk away and you learn something so you can apply it to future campaigns. Or if you're practicing sort of like an agile mentality, you can actually optimize your campaign while it's still running based on some initial results. So what we have here is some basic KPIs, so key performance indicators. So as I was mentioning, there's things like impressions, clicks, click-through rate, and cost per click. These are all metrics that you want to watch, and these are really kind of high-level metrics, right? And this is campaign-level metrics. How many people are seeing it? What's the percentage of people clicking through? What am I paying per click? The conversion piece, conversions rate, or cost per conversion, that's really business metrics. You know, those are things that you want to be able to tie back to your campaign and understand the value that it's providing. So make sure you're watching those pieces, and then also, you know, consider doing some A/B testing. And it doesn't have to be when people say A/B testing, they automatically think of terms like big data and analytics and analysts that just may be a little bit scary or maybe a bit overwhelming. But realistically, I mean, it can just come down to testing things like creative or images. You know, messaging is fine, right? The way that you speak about something, or the targeting piece that you're doing. You know, try one geographic area versus another geographic area, or even the channel if you want. I mean, and as I mentioned before, testing the channels is a really great way to understand where your message will perform, and it always helps to start out with a small test across a few channels, and then you reinvest accordingly afterward. The image on the right is just a kind of a snapshot of the way that typically the accounts, the advertising accounts on the back end are structured. You'd have and some of the terminology is different, but typically you would have an overall campaign. And that's going to have a single objective. For example, just like, let's say, website visit would be that campaign, and then you would have two audiences. And you know, here we're just talking about a test. So one audience, for example, may be one geography, and the second audience may be another geography. Or maybe you could say I'm testing males versus females, or people that just moved, or people that just returned from vacation. And then in our example, we're also testing here two different types of ads per audience. So maybe those ad version 1 are the same across both. So we're testing these two types of ads with certain audiences, or maybe you've got 4 different ads. Realistically, you just want to make sure that you're continuously testing, you're continuously trying new things. You don't just create one ad and one audience and then just run it, because maybe with some small tweaks you could really get some really great positive impact that you didn't know about, and you never know until you test. And then again, as I mentioned, you know, before, this isn't like a set it and forget it situation. Digital advertising and social advertising is really iterative. So, you know, you're always wanting to test. When you learn something, you then put it back into your campaign and you optimize. It doesn't really take a lot of time, honestly, if you're running small campaigns, like let's say you're just running campaigns for a few clients. You know, checking in every few days is really helpful, and maybe a little bit more frequently in the very beginning. But as long as you have clear goals outlined, it's really easy to understand what success is and what success isn't, and then you're able to take those learnings and kind of optimize and continue to test. So just in summary, you know, the 4 main pillars here are selecting the correct channel, audience targeting, making sure you've got technical pieces implemented for measuring, and then learning and optimizing. And again, when it comes to channel, you want to think about audience, mindset, outcome, and communication. Audience is really about the goals, the specificity, really important to layer, but also understand your trade-offs. You don't want to go too big, you don't want to go too wide, and after a few campaigns, you'll start to understand what works. And then the technical piece for measuring, you know, you want to make sure that you can talk about whether your campaign was a success or a failure. And failures are okay, because you learned something. But you do that through things like ROMI, and then making sure that you have your goal and your conversion outline. And then learning and optimizing, right? Testing is really important. You want to make sure that you have the right KPIs outlined, and then you're always iterating your process. So with that, I'll turn it over back to Adrian, and I think we can work through some questions. And if you guys have any questions about specific things I went over, that's fine. Or if you have more general, you know, more general social media advertising questions, just let us know.
Yeah, and actually we do have a question here. We have one that says, does A/B testing cost? Can you dig deeper on when this is most appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of the channels, A/B testing is not, it doesn't cost any additional money. So it really just depends on how you structure your campaign. So as I mentioned before, I showed you that image of the different audiences. Let me go back to that if I can really fast. Basically, you can actually, not working.
This one?
Yep. Sorry. One more back. So here's that example of that campaign, right? This is actually built off of a Facebook example. This is how Facebook does their hierarchy of their campaigns. So what we have here is a campaign, and then the audience is what you would call an ad set, and then you have the ads. So no additional charge to do A/B testing. It just comes down to you have to understand the hierarchy of the tools. LinkedIn, it's similar. You're going to have an actual account, you'll have campaigns, and then you'll have ads in it. So it doesn't cost any money. It just comes down to organizing it correctly. I would argue that it's important always to A/B test. I don't think that there is an example that you can show me where you wouldn't want to A/B test unless you just you only have one message or one creative, or you're really limited by your imagery. But you always want to try to create a hypothesis before you get started and understand what you think is going to happen. And then you also may want to create another example of something that you think may not happen, but you might want to test it. We just had a client this week where there was a guide. They built an online, like a guide for dummies. It was it was basically something with their industry. It had to do with cloud computing, and it was for dummies. And when we first started talking about the campaign, I told our internal team, I said, I think this book for dummies is going to be really, really weak. I don't think people are going to download it because I think that it's too like general and too high up. It's just not, these people that we're talking to are like technical architects, and these people like understand what open source technology is. And I'm glad we A/B tested it, because we did for dummies, and then we also did kind of a more really in-depth document. The in-depth document got 0 conversions, and the for dummies got 25 in a week. So that just goes to show you, right? Like, I had a hypothesis and I was proved wrong, and that's great because we learned something, and now we know that type of content may be popular. But depending on what you're trying to promote, or the engagement that you're trying to elicit, you might want to test other things like messaging, imagery, targeting, etc.
Yep, that's a good point. And actually, one of our next questions is, what are some best practices for content or picking images? And I'll start this, Joey, and then feel free to take over. But I think this actually goes back to probably step 1. Let me get back here. So the channel selection. I think when it comes to the audience, that's really where you figure out best practices from a content perspective. And it really depends on the channel. So for LinkedIn, premium content is going to be your best friend. Give people a reason to click, give people a reason to download something. For Facebook, it's all about the lifestyle. Figure out if you're able to do really authentic human imagery. Videos are huge, and not videos as we have come to view videos, but more of what we call micro content. So micro videos like boomerangs, which I'm sure you've seen, or the stop motion videos, which are popular in a lot of the recipe videos online. And for Instagram, we do see movement with videos on there, but it's really about the stunning visuals on Instagram. That's how you really are able to make impact on that. And then one thing I would say is content is really, really important, but also it is important to kind of, be a first adopter. Speaking specifically to Instagram, I remember when we first had some of our first clients do some Instagram advertising, there was an arbitrage because the big players hadn't really gotten there yet, so they were able to make a lot of impact in the early days. So I would say there's probably a little bit still there with that, but really focusing on the audience and figuring out what type of content would make the most sense to them. And then another
absolutely.
question. Oh,
absolutely.
Sorry, Joe.
And just to jump in there, Adrian, too, one thing that's important when you're talking about selecting imagery or developing imagery, and this is just more of like the execution piece, it's really important that you understand all your ad specifications too. So you need to know, and you can just Google like Facebook advertising specifications, and they've got a really great guide as to the types of ads you're able to do. and then the things that you need to remember when you build the ad. So the specific sizes for the images are really important, because you want to make sure that you're going to be able to have that image display across most devices. So they will generally recommend certain dimensions as well as pixel counts. So when it comes to specific images, and then some of the things that are really interesting too, for example, Facebook, you're not allowed to have more than 20% of your image be text. So that's something that you want to ensure that you, when you start to develop the imagery, that you're actually keeping that stuff in mind. So it's really helpful too to just kind of dive in and select when you build out that user flow that we're showing, that when you select your goals and your audience, your channel, that you actually will know what ads you're going to be using, because that's going to allow you to be more impactful. Some of them will still run, but you're going to get limited reach, and then others will just flat out reject it if it's too much. And that's actually a good thing, because the networks are trying to steer people towards creating great ads, so users won't be annoyed and users will be more interested in clicking through.
Yep. Awesome. So Joey, our next question we have here is, can you touch on Twitter advertising? I don't have any experience there, but I see the ads in my news feed.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's quite a bit of Twitter advertising that's out there. I guess some of the most popular are just the promoted posts, where you can actually pay to make sure that your post gets included in someone's news feed. There's also some great, and that's really just like you're promoting a tweet, so it'll say promoted in it. Some of the ones that we've seen be successful are the website card ads. So these are the ones that you'll see that they pull in a larger image, and then they also have a really strong call to action, which will encourage people to click through to another website. And what that does is it provides kind of the visual element to it, and it makes it something that as Adrian was mentioning, like things like food or things that are really visually appealing will help you push, generate more click-throughs. So I would say start with doing some website card advertising, and then there's also some additional ad units that you may want to look into if you get some success there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say as an agency, and Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've seen the most impact with Facebook and Instagram advertising. Twitter, their algorithm isn't going to be as strong as, Facebook's and Instagram's, but it's definitely worth testing, especially in the early phases of a campaign.
Yeah, I think that's something that, is totally true. And there's a lot of sort of talk in the industry about, is Twitter going to be able to really right the ship? We see with some clients it can work well, but with most of them it hasn't been as successful. We've seen great impact with Facebook, Instagram, and then to add to that with our B2B clients, LinkedIn has done really well.
Yep. And then we just had a follow-up question to that. It says, can you target your audiences like on Facebook? And you can, but it's going to be a little bit different. So you're able to target in similar but different ways. So you can actually target with language targeting, so reaching people who are going to speak a specific language. Also, you're able to target by the gender, so male or females. Like Facebook, you're able to target interest-based as well, and even follower targeting. So let's say you have a really robust page and you want to specifically target your account or even accounts of other people's, or accounts of other organizations, you're able to do that. You can also do things like device targeting and tailored audience targeting with your own CRM lists as well. So there is pretty robust targeting on Twitter.
Absolutely. Just to reiterate that last point you made, Adrian, the best piece is the custom audience piece, where you can actually upload your information. That's really where you want to get to it, and that's called tailored audiences. That's where you guarantee impressions, and some of this information is publicly available too. If you don't actually own it, you can go out and kind of understand people's, get their information from their websites or from LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have our last question here. It is, how would you recommend integrating social advertising with other digital marketing like search marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's awesome to think that teams are looking more towards the integration, because that's always what we recommend from Spark2 perspective. One great way, for example, integration is to use the same types of imagery or messaging across different channels. So let's say they're using display advertising. Well, let's make sure that some of the display advertising on social is similar. And that's just basically making sure that campaign theme is correct. One way that I always like to use social and search is specifically for the text ads for search. When someone would type in a product or a query in Google and then they click on an ad, they get to that landing page and then they don't maybe make a purchase there. What we would do is we would then remarket to that group on social. So they're coming to the landing page, they don't make that purchase, then next thing you know, they're on Facebook and they're going to be seeing those remarketing ads that are about that product. That's really helpful because it's sort of like, oh yeah, people look at it like, yeah, I was looking at that like last week and didn't have the opportunity to buy it then, or didn't have the opportunity to sign that petition or whatever it may be, but now I'm gonna, because it keeps following me around. So those are some of the great ways from like a retargeting perspective. And I would say that's probably one of our most successful pieces too.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, let me just go to the beginning of this presentation. If you do have any questions or anything that we didn't get to answer during this time, please feel free to reach out to me via email. It's adrian@sparksou.com. We could talk about social advertising all day, so definitely reach out if you have any questions. Thank you to my team, Joey and Alicia, for being here. And then thank you to the rest of you for joining us on this Tuesday. We really appreciate you all spending your afternoon with us. And do send any questions that you have, but thank you again.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye-bye.